Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Secretary Johnson, good to have you before the committee again. I've got so many questions for you. I don't know where to begin, but I'm going to, if I could, try to get some rapid responses to 4 issues. First is an issue, as you know, we're dealing with right now on the floor of the United States Senate, which is this epidemic of prescription drug and heroin addiction and overdoses. We will lose probably 25 people in Ohio this week, 100 people in America today to overdoses. We understand that this heroin is primarily coming from Mexico over the border. We had testimony in the House Judiciary Committee from Texas Director of Public Safety recently saying this porous border with Mexico provides cartels reliable means to infiltrate this country, allowing them to smuggle and traffic drugs and people in the United States, talks about some of the cartels and what they engage in. Can you give us a sense of what we could be doing better to interdict these drugs, to keep them from coming into the United States? And specifically tell us, if you could, what % of the heroin coming in is apprehended and stopped at the border, or what % is coming into our communities?
Well, a couple of things. One, most of the heroin that is brought into the country is over land, not by sea. The Coast Guard is focused on this, but most of it is smuggled by land. I do know that the percentage of heroin smuggled interdicted by CBP that was smuggled, those numbers, those volume has been going up between last year and the year before. And that has been going up because of our sustained, enhanced efforts. This is an effort that our joint task forces have undertaken. It's an effort that CBP has undertaken, and it's an effort that Homeland Security Investigations has undertaken as well. I don't have, sitting here, an estimate of what percentage is interdicted versus what percentage gets through. If we have that number, I will see if I can provide it for you. But it is the case.
That would be helpful. The number that you hear commonly is that 9 out of 10 of these packages of heroin that are killing our constituents and the people we represent are getting through. And,
I do know that the volume of seizures by CBP, by Homeland Security Investigations, has been going up lately.
I'd love to follow up with you on that and figure out how we can do a better job. I mean, this legislation called CARA before the Senate today focuses more on prevention, treatment, recovery, helping law enforcement, and so on. But one of the issues, obviously, that many of my colleagues and I are concerned about is, how do you stem this flow and therefore increase the price? Because one of the issues is prescription drugs are being replaced by heroin, and because the price is so low and it's flooding our communities. On these unaccompanied children issues, we held a hearing at the Permanent Subcommittee Investigations on this issue. This is where unaccompanied children come in. We talked about the numbers. It looks like, as you said, the numbers are going to be high again this year, although you made some progress in the last couple of months. The fact is we've got thousands of these kids in detention with HHS. You don't detain them. HHS does, and HHS provides these children to adults who are called sponsors. The idea is they go to these sponsors before they can come to an immigration hearing. Sadly, what we found out in our investigation is that some of these children were actually placed not with sponsors who were family members or surrogates of family members, but actual traffickers. And in cases of Ohio, we had kids from Guatemala who ended up at an egg farm being exploited, working 6, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, taking their paychecks away from them by traffickers. These traffickers got the kids from the Department of Health and Human Services. My question to you is very simple this morning. Are you aware of this, 1, and 2, are you working with HHS to come up with a way to actually implement legislation that is currently in place which would prohibit these children being placed with traffickers?
I'm aware of these very unfortunate situations, including the one in Ohio, sir. I know that Secretary Burwell is very focused on the placement of the children. It's her legal obligation. And together we've been working on ensuring adequate placement consistent with the law.
You do have a role here, and as you know, we have, in our report, indicated that HHS can work better with DHS to try to address this issue. Final question, I have more, but it's just this issue of social media and terrorism. We saw with regard to the Bernardino attacks that Tashfeen Malik, the female shooter, was on social media talking about her jihadi agenda. In fact, she went so far as to have an anti-American remark beside a photo of a plane crashing into the World Trade Center, and yet she went through several screenings, and none of that was picked up. Can you tell us briefly what you're doing to be sure that this social media is something that is looked at as people are screened, not just for the K visas for fiancés, but for all of our non-immigrant visas.
Well, two things. One, as the FBI director has commented, Ms. Malik's social media was not public prior to her entry in the United States. Notwithstanding that, we have, over the last 2 years, enhanced our use of social media in connection with immigration benefits. We have a number of pilot programs going on now. There was a social media task force that recently gave a report to me. I directed the department to go even further in our use of social media. We use it now for something like 30 different investigative intelligence purposes across the department, but we are enhancing the use of social media in connection with immigration benefits, both refugee vetting and K-1 review.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.